Welcome back on the AM show. Now, before we get into the next segment, we're going to have a bit of a conversation on something that has, got a lot of tongues wagging, and it's all in the political space in Parliament. I'm sure you know where we're headed. We're talking about the reshuffle. First, it was the ministerial reshuffle, but now it's the reshuffle in Parliament. Parliament's leadership, as far as the majority side or the majority caucus is concerned. Osei Kyei Mensah-Bonsu no longer the majority leader, that his deputy, Afenyo Markin Alexander, taking over. But the question is this the right way to go? Is it going to have any impact of sorts on the MPP, whether positive or negative? There are those who have said Osei Kyei Mensah-Bonsu is an establishment, an institution. Take him away, it comes with consequences. Others have said the party needs the sort of buga that Alexander Afenyo Markin brings to bear heading into election 2024. The Speaker has said that political parties are the ones that change the leadership. All of these questions we're going to be addressing as we host Dr. Kwame Mensah-Bonsu. He's a political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. Doc, good morning. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I am well. I hope you are too.
Good morning, Ben. How are you? I'm fine.
Great. So here we are. Osei Kyei Mensah-Bonsu is now going to lead the manifesto group, as far as the manifesto committee of the NPP is going to be working hand in glove with the vice president, who is also flag bearer of the NPP. But did you forecast that it would happen and happen this quickly?
No, I must say no. I did not have any slight idea as to what was going to happen relative to what we are discussing.
Right.
It has taken me by surprise. But having said that, I must also say that in politics, you should not be surprised about anything. Because when people are looking for power, and if they are looking for power, desperately, all measures can be taken to make sure that they realize that dream. And you and I are alive to the definition by politics as who gets what,
when and how.
Right.
That is the one thing that I guess no political science student of our era would forget. So you didn't necessarily see it coming. You didn't see it coming this quickly. But is it politically savvy, this maneuvering? We've seen the NDC do it, but they did it with quite a bit of time, and it appears they've filled the cracks. At this instance, looking at the period before elections, some say this could go well or it could blow up in the face of the party. What do you think? Hello, Doc? Dr. Asante, can you hear me? All right. We'll try to get the connection through to Dr. Kwame Mensah-Bonsu to get his thoughts on that question I was just posing. But of course, we know that latest incident in respect of Osei Kyei Mensah-Bonsu and that shake-up in Parliament as far as the majority side is concerned. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagman, has also said that the caucuses cannot be talking about designating or appointing their leaders without the parties leading the process. And that also reflects on the previous incident as far as the NDC is concerned. He makes mention of the fact that the old standing orders referred to party or parties, but this new one is not referring to the party, but caucuses, the Speaker indicated. And he said that he had heard and listened. And I know that the parties are having problems with new definitions of the leaders. According to him, while the old leaders defined the majority leader to mean a member of parliament designated by the party or parties having majority of the seats in the House as their recognized leader in the House, the new order says the majority leader means a member of parliament designated by the majority caucus as their leader in the House. And he added, the Speaker also added, The same standing orders talk about the majority caucus and say majority caucus means the members of the party or parties that have the largest number of seats in the House. I really don't see the difference. It's still talking about the same thing. The caucus is a party wing. So now there is that standoff, if you like, about what does party mean and what does caucus mean and all of that, and who determines who leads in Parliament. There are all of those discussions, and I don't know. Dr. Asante, Kwame Asante, are you with me now?
Please, I'm with you.
Okay, right. Did you get my earlier question?
If you can take it again.
All right. I was saying that some people felt, look, the NDC had done it, but it had had enough time to fill the crevices, okay, the cracks. The MPP is doing it at a time when it is just a few months to election 2024. And some have said, well, it could go okay, or it could blow up in the face of the party. What do you think?
Anything can happen as far as this decision is concerned. Yeah, sometimes you are likely to have a situation where it can divide the party and then create problems for the party ahead of 2024 election. There is no doubt about that. Sometimes too, it is possible that, yes, they will be able to weather the storm and make sure that they bring everybody in line. But you always want to play it safe, especially when you are at a very close range to the election, that you don't worsen the situation. Already, from the the primaries and all that, there are simmering tension within the party to a certain extent. So you don't aggravate the situation by creating a more difficult situation that will polarize the system the more. So I thought that the party would have taken a cue from others and would have taken a decision that would resonate with people and make sure that the party is kept tight. At this point in time, all that one needed to have is to have a consensus built around this issue by the two entities, that's the caucus and the party, sitting down to talk and then deciding who to lead the party at Parliament. For me, this should not be a difficult thing if the party intends to fix this problem and fix it once and for all.
Now, how do you react to the Speaker? Because the new standing orders say he references the new and the old standing orders. Now, it says the majority leader means a member of Parliament designated by the majority caucus as their leader in the House. And he talks about the fact that the same standing orders talk about the majority caucus and say majority caucus means the members of the party or parties that have the largest number of seats in the House. And he says he doesn't see the difference. It's still talking about the same thing. The caucus is a party wing. That is the wing of the party in Parliament. And he says basically, so it is the party that chooses who leads the parliamentary caucus. Some have disagreed, but what is your take on it? Because that will take us back to what happened in the NDC as well, and all the push and shove and the talk about, but why is the party administrative body determining the leadership of Parliament when it's not parliamentarians determining that? What's your take?
When you look at the two scenarios, the NDC one and this one, there are slight differences.
All right.
One of the main differences is that if you look at the NDC's one, it came at a time where the new standing orders was not invoked. Mm-hmm. All right. So the contexts were different.
But now they are, and this is happening.
Now
that's the context.
You have the standing orders in full force. Mm-hmm. So one would have expected Parliament to, if they were interested in having a definition that resonates with what the Speaker said, they should have put into it black and white. You law students have always been telling us that it is when it is written that you can say that this is the way, but it can't be on your mind, or on your lips and all that. Put it into writing and let us believe that this is how it's going to be.
But this is the fine print, and Still, there appears to be, I do not know whether it's not categorical enough, because the Speaker, of course, even in Parliament, there is also interpretation, just as in the judicial system, there will be interpretation of what the law means in context,
Yes.
right? And in this instance...
I follow that.
Right.
Ben, I follow that. But I would have thought that at least a matter of this nature, if you have extended the frontiers of the provision a little bit to capture the would have saved the situation. But that aside, all right, now what we have is what we can discuss. I don't think that the Speaker's position is wrong. I don't think so. I share in his view in the sense that if you look at Parliament, there is no caucus if there is no party. The party must exist in order to what? Trigger a process that gets people elected to Parliament. And then out of that, the party decide to put into what? Parliament, their leadership. Remember, when election is done, the determination of who will be as a leader in Parliament is done by the party. So that should be the basis. If you have that, and today you have a standing order number 5, which says that leaders will be picked from Parliament by the caucus, then my understanding is that involve the two entities, the party and then the caucus. Let them sit down and then lead, have a discussion. Definitely, there will be what? Compromises. And then at the end of the day, you build what? A consensus. I don't think this should be difficult because I am not sure that the caucus can take a decision without reference to the party and the vice versa. No. So it tells you that the two must work in tandem so as to what? Produce the kind of what? Result that they want. Otherwise, you are likely to have this, fiesta that we are witnessing and that everybody wants to show its power relative to what we are discussing. But for me, it is much ado about nothing. All that you need is that you need the party and then you need the caucus working hand in hand to take decisions such as what? Having leadership in Parliament to represent them. If you start from anywhere and without consensus, I'm afraid you are going to hit a snag.
Okay, let me bring in Samuel Bing, Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa. Sami, thank you for joining the conversation. Let's start off with your quick reaction to this development. Did you see it coming? If you did you see it happening this quickly? And when you look at the fine print of the new standing orders and what it says about this, what happened with the NDC, at least then, the new standing orders were not enforced. Now it is enforced. And the Speaker is literally saying, when I see it, when it says the caucus, it's party members representing the caucus. So the party has control, basically. That's what he's saying. How do you see that? What's your reflection?
Did I see it happening? Yes. Did I see it happening this quick? Yes.
Was it a good thing? I mean, do you think it's something that is in the right direction for the MPP?
Well, so that then becomes a different matter. Of course, I saw it happening or coming and this quickly because of the happenings for this week. I mean, I was also in Parliament. There were some engagements yesterday I'm privy to, and so yes, I really anticipated that these things were going to happen. As to whether it is the best for the NPP, I mean, look, if you have a leader of the caucus who has served 8 years as minority leader, almost 8 years as majority leader, has been whipped, led in committees, internationally acclaimed, legislator, and all of those, accolades. Certainly, you do not want him to leave his role in this manner, where there is a leakage in the media, there is a supported...
Which brings to mind claims that he may have been pushed out, that it wasn't necessarily his will. Because you look at the fact that, the Manifesto Committee is going to chair this committee for the presidential campaign of the MPP, Dr. Bawumia, and then, he could have done it and still be leader in Parliament, majority leader.
Well, as to whether he could have done both, it's another matter to be discussed. Remember that if you are majority leader, you are leader of government business in Parliament, you are minister for parliamentary affairs, according to the charter of the ministry at the moment, and you are on the Parliamentary Service Board, I mean, the workload is huge. I don't know the workload that is expected of the manifesto committee chair, but I'm assuming that this is also going to be huge, considering the kind of situation we are in and what the manifesto committee want to do, how they have to move around and engage with people, perhaps if that is their strategy. However, I really cannot speak to being pushed out or not being pushed out. These are politicians. In every political system, especially in parliament,
Right.
some of these maneuverings do happen. You know, sometimes you have people who are working directly with people being the ones instigating for some of these things to happen and all of that. These things happen in these systems. So I'm not really surprised when I see these things happen. But to the weightier matter of the standing orders and what the interpretations would be, of course, with Mr. Speaker speaking to the matter yesterday on the floor of Parliament, his position on the matter essentially is quote and unquote the law, because the standing order says that if there is ambiguity or there is misunderstanding on any subject matter, the Speaker's ruling holds sway unless anybody, you know, challenges the Speaker's ruling. So from what has happened yesterday, certainly his ruling now, by virtue of him being the Speaker, is what actually pertains, unless, you know, it gets challenged. But I disagree with Mr. Speaker's ruling respectfully to some extent.
So you disagree on what point? The fact that, let me just read, let me quote verbatim what he says, so in this instance, the Daily Guide newspaper captures part of that, other papers as well, but he says, just so you can react, I have heard and I have listened, and I know that the parties are having problems with new definitions of the leaders. The old standing orders referred to party or parties, but this new one is not referring to the party, but caucuses. Now, he goes on to say the majority leader means a member of parliament designated by the majority caucus as their leader in the House. That's according to him. The old orders defined the majority leader to mean a member of parliament designated by the party or parties having majority of seats in the House. That's the old. Now he says, the same standing orders talk about the majority caucus and say majority caucus means the members of the party or parties that have the largest number of seats in the House. And he adds, tellingly, I really don't see the difference. It's still talking about the same thing. The caucus is a party wing. That is the wing of the party in Parliament. You cannot be talking about designating or appointing your leaders without the party leading the process. So how then do you understand it? I just had to situate it in that end.
No,
how do you understand the fine print?
Ben, it's great that you read this, and that even brings me to the point. So let me cite this example.
Right.
If in our next parliament, this is just hypothetical, the NPP has 100 seats, the CPP has 50 seats, and both join in to make the majority caucus, which party takes that decision? It's a caucus.
There would have to be some compromises then, of course,
Absolutely.
when you form. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we have a system where it's usually the MPP or the NDC. It's casting.
But even if you have the some of the practical examples that have come to play, let's say that only 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 PNC, CPP, whichever political party members caucus to make up the majority. Are you trying to tell me that those members of parliament must not be consulted in taking up leadership? What has happened in the NDC last year and what is happening now has shown that there were absolutely no consultations with the political party caucus in parliament. The NDC one was clear. They told us. I mean, the members of parliament themselves. The MPP one, no mean a person than Joe Osei who had to do a press conference and said, caucus has not discussed it. Nobody has come to deny that, right? So if these consultations do not go on, I'm only citing an example, which is a plausible example, in the future, that if the caucus involves others, what this is going to do going forward also is that it would make other political parties that are able to get certain seats in parliament be minded about whether they want to caucus in a particular way. You get my point? And so the tidier way around this, and I heard the earlier speaker on the other line mention, sorry, I didn't quite catch who
Dr. Kwame Asasante.
Great. Dr. Sante indicates that the tidier way is to have some consensus between party and members of parliament within the caucus, and that saves us all the trouble. Party must certainly be influential in parliament because they have, an interest But
Right.
we are working with a group of people who are in parliament, and those group of people must be respected enough. This way of going about things is not respectful to members of parliament.
Sammy, hold on. Let me bring in Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. What do you make of two things? One, this whole bit about party and caucus. And do you feel Osei Kyei Mensah-Bonsu taking on the role of the manifesto committee for the Bawumia campaign meant that he couldn't still remain majority leader?
Held the two positions, giving his
Doc, I think you should go back because we missed the first part of your submission.
Yeah, I am saying that there is no doubt in my mind that Mr. Kyei Mensah-Bonsu could have handled the two portfolios and handled them very well.
Okay.
He's a very experienced man for parliamentary work. He knows all the things associated with it, at least to a large extent. And then with the manifesto thing, he can also preside over it without any problem. But even where you think that you want to free his hand so as to enable him to perform that manifesto role effectively, the consensus was critical. Yes, to have everybody seated around a table and then you discuss and you find a way out. Yes, but if you decide that you are going to work because you are the party and that for that matter you have the final say, then it becomes a bit problematic. If you also think that yes, now the standing orders has given you power, and for that matter you can take a decision without reference to the party, that is another matter which I don't think that it is right. The two must work hand in hand. After all, they are talking about what? Interest articulation. They are articulating their interest. And what interest? The caucus doesn't have a certain interest which is different from the party. They all share the same interest. And that interest is that they will have a common front, and that common front will serve their interest in the parliament as well as serve the interest in the party, and then by extension to the general populace of the country. So all the noise, they could have saved everybody, include and then save the party itself from all this, because this is a very simple matter, if they really. But from look of things, you realize that a whole lot of things are simmering. And for me, that doesn't bode well for a party which is in difficulty by all standards and then want to marshal all forces to go and then campaign effectively. Then you need a united front to prosecute that agenda.
And you've said that, especially with the party facing the difficulties it is facing, this could be problematic. Could this be a shot in the MPP's own foot by the MPP itself?
Oh, if it is not managed well, it can create all manner of problems and then compromise their chances and all that. Remember, you and I listened to the deputy speaker and the way he spoke. Obviously, there are people who are supporting that call. There are all those also in the party who feel that the status quo must change and change to a certain direction. All these ding-dong battles would not gear well for a party that really wants to maintain power for the third time running. So I believe that at this time of the day, all that you need, that if there are differences, you try and use all the mechanisms that you have to deal with them head on, and then you move on. Because the campaign itself poses a great challenge for the party, looking at the economic condition we find ourselves, and even the political system as we find it today. So there are a lot to in there for them to handle. So if they want to compound the situation, then I'm afraid they are going to fall on their own dagger.
I'll take your final words, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Samuel Bing. So how can the MPP make this transition seamless, smooth, and with the least of impact? If you were advising the MPP, what would you tell them to do moving forward?
My first proposal is that, look, there is always a way out to any problem. Call a meeting, get all the parties, the caucus, and then the parties together, and then table your issue, jaw, and then build what? Definitely there will be what? you exchange ideas, and then you come to a consensus. And out of the consensus, whatever comes out, everybody will defend it.
Hello, Doc. I think we've lost Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He started enumerating some points. Samuel Bing, are you with me?
Yes, I am. And perhaps in addition to the points that Doc makes, the NPP can certainly steal a leaf from the book of the NDC in handling this matter just about a year ago. And the processes as outlined earlier by Doc were what they used after this announcement and the disagreement and what have you. They had a meeting, they were able to judge, or they came to some level of consensus. They paid for it at some point, but at least it was not too fatal. I hope that the NPP would be able to learn from this. But ultimately, I think members of parliament of the various caucuses should know that because of the precedent of the NDC situation, this has also happened. And these two precedents would certainly be taken advantage of by political parties in not consulting the caucus if they just allow it to go, and for which reason they must speak out, and there must be a tidier process of selecting leadership of caucuses in parliament going forward.
So you mean the voices in parliament and the majority caucus must be more vocal or they must be more vociferous on this matter, else in future it could mean parties have unfettered access to do what we've seen in the NDC and now in the MPP. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely, and the NDC colleagues also must have an interest in that, so that their people also do not take advantage of it going forward.
Samuel Bey, thank you very much for joining the conversation. Let me try one last time if we have Dr. Asah-Asante.
Yes, I think I'm here. Sorry.
Yes, we lost you briefly. Quickly on that point you were making.
Yes, I'm saying that, first of all, they must recognize the fact that they are working for the common interest of the party, whether a caucus or a party. They should be able to work, smoke peace pipes around whatever differences that exist between them, and then sit down, call a meeting, have people seated, discuss issues, and then arrive at a consensus. And based on that, let it be the policy. You see, when decisions are taken in this way, the good news is that everybody who is part and parcel would defend that decision when it comes on the attack, and then they will work with it. But when you isolate people, it becomes a problem when that decision needs to be defended. People will shy away. And then let them remember that the two entities, that the caucus and the party, cannot work at cross purposes. They will always have to work, team up, work together, and build that solid front. That will dovetail into all the good things that I expect the party and the caucus to do relative to the campaign that is ahead. Without that, I'm afraid they are likely to have their fingers bent, and it will not bode well for them.
Thank you so much, Doc. Those who joined us for this conversation, and it's a conversation that will continue. Samuel Bing, Executive Director, Parliamentary Network, Africa, and of course, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, political scientist and Director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. We take a breather. When we return, it's a conversation with Liberia's current Vice President, sworn in only on the 22nd of January this year. It's a compelling story about a human being helping another human being and how we all could face those situations in life. It's also about the politics of Liberia and George Oppong-Weah and the latest dynamics in there. You want to stay for AM exclusive, my conversation with Jeremiah Kong, Vice President of Liberia, after the break.